hopefully some tools to maintain a positive outlook and keep your heads on straight while reinforcing resilience in your students and celebrating all of their efforts that have gotten us here. I'm Erica Shadler. I'm one of the 8 school counselors. And today you're also going to hear from Lindsay Ryle, another one of the school counselors, Kelly Dalmazio, she's our senior internship coordinator. And we're so lucky that Sandra Workington, one of our school psychologists, was able to step in and join us at the last second, so thank you. And also you have Mr. Rothman in the back. Not that you'll necessarily hear from him, but he is your senior class administrator, so say a little hello. And I'm going to actually turn it right over to Kelly so she can talk to you a bit about that senior internship program.
Hello, everyone. So yesterday you all probably received an email from me about the senior internship program. So I just kind of want to follow up and go over some important and helpful information. Also, yesterday I presented to the seniors during their building blocks about the program, and then later on in the day they all received an email from me with the most important information and registration instructions. So I guess if you're having a conversation with your students about it and they seem clueless about it, you can definitely, which they shouldn't, but you can refer them back to their email sent on December 4th. So just a little bit about the program. It's the last 4 weeks of the school year. So it runs from May 20th to June 13th. That start date will always be the same. The end date may change depending on snow days. It's 25 hours a week, typically 5 hours a day during the school hours. So students that are doing spring sports or maybe have a job after school, they should be back in time for those. Students do receive credit, so we ask that during the internships they're not going to get surgeries or going on college orientation visits because it will affect their credits. And not only that, but their sites and their supervisors have really put in a lot of time and effort to make their internships a wonderful experience, and they're relying on your students. So attendance is definitely mandatory and important. Students do receive a faculty or staff mentor during the process. So during their internships, those are kind of their go-to person to help guide them, answer questions. They are doing a site visit, and then also your students will be doing journals, and those mentors are reading and commenting on the journals. The program is not required, but highly encouraged, and most of our students do participate. Students that do not choose to participate or do not meet the deadline would simply remain in class during the internship period. So the deadline, it opened yesterday, and the deadline is Tuesday, January 7th. So let's make sure the students meet that deadline. It's very important. To register, we have a software called School Links. So the students are going to log on to School Links. When they're on, they're going to see there's 2 applications. They will select one of the 2. So the first application is placed by the school, and that is where they will look through a database of internships that we have provided them. They can read through the description. They search them by internship title, and then they're going to select and rank their top 15 sites. So basically when they're on there, they just like their top 15 and then they move them around, so one is their first choice. We tell students be happy with all 15 because there are some sites that their top 5 might be 30 other people's top 5. So we have some wonderful sites, and so they should be definitely happy with all 15. We really do try, the committee tries to place them within their top, but again, sometimes there's just some really popular sites. The other is a self-design, and that's where students are going out and designing their own internship based on our committee's criteria. So it is important, and we talked about this yesterday in the meeting, that they go and review that criteria. I would hate for them to get to that deadline and realize that they did not meet the criteria and the committee did not approve it. So the criteria, the general criteria, and it's all in the email that I sent, but basically you cannot intern for a family member. It can't be at an internship. Their internship cannot be where they're currently working. They can't intern for themselves, although I'm sure they would love that. It must be within a 30-mile radius of the school. We do allow remote internships, although we definitely prefer in person. However, there have been some wonderful opportunities that just need to be remote, and in those cases, the students should be video conferencing with their site supervisor daily. What am I missing? Oh, it can't be on the list of sites that we have provided. So in the email that the students received yesterday, there's a link. They can click on it and they can cross-reference so they can see all of the sites that the school is providing and make sure it's not on the list. If it is on the list, they're welcome to do the place by school and apply. We just can't guarantee that they will get that, but they're welcome to. When students are filling out the application, it's very important that they've had a conversation with their site and the host to make sure, this is for the self-design, that they have been approved, they know what they're going to be doing, because as soon as they click submit on their application, it goes directly to their host. Again, this is for self-designed students. So they will need their host email and phone number, a job description or an internship description of what they'll be doing. And then I told students yesterday, once you click submit, it would be very helpful, and I would highly encourage you to communicate with the site to let them know to go on, for them, the site, to go on and check their email. And when the students all know the email, it's coming through info@schoollinks.com, to let their site know, please go on and approve me. The site has to approve them. In addition to, once the site is approved, then it comes through to the committee's end, and then the committee is going to review it and approve it. I encourage students, and I would encourage you all, if they want to do a self-design, to start now. Employers are busy, things fall through, it takes time, so they should not wait if they really want to self-design. So I threw a lot of information at you. It's all on the senior internship website. So if you just go to the high school website, search senior internship, it should pop up. I made a pretty flyer on the back over there that has all of the key information as well. And it's all in your email, and it's all in your students' email. So again, your students can reach out to me at any time. I'm happy to answer any questions. They can come visit me. But also feel free to reference, if you're having a conversation, reference that December 4th email with them. That's my spiel. Does anyone have any question? Oh, one more thing I should say, because this was a question that came up yesterday from a few students. Does it matter if I complete my application today versus complete my application on January 6th? It's due on the 7th. Does that, put me at priority? It doesn't matter. They just need to get them in by the 7th. So whether they apply at, the 6th at midnight versus, which no one's going to do. They're all on it, I know. But yes, they can submit it up until the 7th. Yes.
Someone that kind of outlines expectations of the employer, where here's what I'm asking of you, so that they have an understanding of what they have to do on their end.
Yes. So on our website and in the email, there's a link for self-design, and when you click on self-design, there's a spot that says click here for employer information, and on that it's like a Canva piece, and it has the information about the program and all of the information that the student needs to collect from. So yes, it's on there on the website under self-design. Yep. Yes.
What does the application entail for the school place?
Yeah, sure. So it starts with them reviewing all of the sites and ranking them, and then when they proceed forward, then it's going to ask them if they have a certain career field they're interested in, and then there's 4 kind of short answer questions, basically for the committee to have a better understanding of what they want to get out of the internships, what skills they might bring to the internship. There's 2 other questions that I can't remember off the top of my head, but yes, there's 4 questions that they have to answer. Yeah. And those same questions, the self-design students also answer, because all of your students will go through an interview. So in January and February, they all do these 15-minute interviews with the senior internship committee. And it's really a way for the committee to get to know your students and what they want to get out of the internship. But also it's a great way for your students to learn the interview process. You know, even for all of us, interviewing can be very nerve-wracking. And so we set it up in a way that should not be nerve-wracking for them, but they're really practicing those skills so that when they move on to, you know, internships in college or even jobs or summer jobs, they've kind of practiced those skills in a very supportive and comfortable but professional environment. Anything else? Okay, thank you guys. I look forward to working with your students. I must say I presented yesterday. We had a wonderful turnout, and I was telling Ari how impressed they were all so respectful and just a really great group, so I can't wait to work with them. Thanks. Have fun. Bye.
Okay, so to now totally switch gears, we are going to start, and I'm sorry, I feel like I don't need a microphone, but it's for the recording, so excuse me. We're going to start by reviewing the different admissions decisions that are going to be coming your way, hopefully within the next couple of months. So first, we have acceptances, right? Fairly self-explanatory. Yay, we're excited, we've been accepted. Remember, if your student was accepted to their ED school, if they applied early decision, that means that they need to withdraw their applications from their other schools. So if they have early action applications elsewhere, but they've been accepted to their ED, they're going to withdraw those other early or regular applications. If they're accepted from an early or an early action or a regular decision, the only thing that you all need to kind of keep on your to-do list is making that deposit by May 1st. So you make your decision, you compare packages, and then you're depositing by May 1st. Denials, right? Not quite as exciting, but also fairly straightforward. You know, if your student is denied from any of their schools, we are just going to focus on moving on to their other options, right? They're denied, there's nothing you can do there, we just move on. And then there's deferrals. So a deferral means that that school was not ready to make a decision on that applicant just yet. So in most cases, they're going to be moving from an early round to a regular decision pool. And here it's really important that your child is reading through it's still an acceptance letter, right? But it'll detail that they've been deferred. There can often be instructions with next steps on what they need to do to either accept that deferral, move on to the regular decision. Do they want to update their application type to early decision 2? Many potential different options. They just need to make sure they're reading through that letter that they receive and following the directions closely.
All right, thank you. So the other couple of options that your children might hear back from schools, there is a waitlist decision. So if your child is waitlisted, that does mean that the college is interested in them. It's not a denial. It's not a deferral. It really is just as it sounds. They've been put on a wait list. The college is interested in them. They just do not have a place in their admitted class at that time. Wait lists can vary, and it will depend not only on the university, but the year as far as when they dip into their wait list, if they dip into their wait list, how many students they might be able to take from their wait list. So wait lists are not great, not bad. They're just something that, again, similar to deferrals, we want to follow whatever instructions are given with that wait list. It's common that there's another form or statement that your child will have to submit accepting their place on the wait list, or they can indicate that they don't wish to be on the wait list. So there's the wait list. There's also the branch option. So the branch, particularly at larger universities, branch is not a denial. Branch is actually, you've been accepted to the university, just not to the main campus or to your preferred number one campus choice. So when a student is branched, they could be branched a couple towns over. It could be a short-term branch where you go complete one semester or 1 year at a nearby campus. Or it could be overseas. It could be at an international campus. It could be across the country. So definitely looking into what those branch options are. Name of the game for all of these is following those instructions. So all of your children will get emails with these decisions. There will be next steps that they need to take. whether it's a letter of continued interest or updating portals with information, whatever that university is asking for, it's always there in that email, but important that your kids are also keeping their counselors in the loop, and we're happy to provide anything or help your kids as they're working on those statements or supplemental writings.
Any questions about those different steps?
I was just still trying to figure out where the camera is.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's in back, I think.
It's in back of me?
No, in the back.
Oh, I was thinking, I hope the camera isn't there because that's a really bad view of my face.
This is not the camera.
Anyway, I was happy to step in. I have 3 adult children, so I've been through this process 3 times, and I've had experienced the gamut of all the wrong things to do and all the right things to do. I think I finally got it back right by the 3rd one, but so I get where you all are, and I love the words that came up because it is exciting, right? I mean, it's exciting to understand where they're going to be in their next steps and making that decision. But with that comes a lot of anxiety because you don't know how you're going to handle it because you've been part of the process all along. So it is a big family event, I would say, that can take a lot of twists and turns. So what we thought would be very helpful is we've created some scenarios, and then we're going to have interactions. So my friends here are going to act out. There's going to be a child and an adult, and we've created, I think, 7 scenarios. And then what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what was right about that and what was wrong about that and how could we do it differently. So we really wanted this to be fun and interactive and just supportive for you because we really recognize that it's an anxious time in your family.
Perfect, thank you.
This is the child.
I will be playing the role of the New Canaan High School senior.
And I will be mom.
Or dad.
Or dad.
Or dad, yeah, there's a couple.
Hey, sweetie, what are you looking at?
Georgetown emailed. My admissions decision is on the portal.
Ooh, this is it, huh? Who knows? Maybe you'll end up at the same school as your brother after all.
I guess.
Well, let me see that. Well, this is disappointing, but we knew Georgetown was a big reach.
I know, that's what I've been saying from the beginning. I didn't even want to apply.
I know how much this must hurt. You and Tommy have been talking about going to Georgetown together since you could walk.
No, Mom, you've been talking about that. This sucks. Because of you, I actually want to go, and now I can't. Why did you even make me apply?
Oh no, this is not my fault. I've been on you about your grades for 4 years, and you never want my help. Tommy made the high honor roll every year. He was the Stuco president, and you spend your afternoons gaming. What did you really expect? There are plenty of other colleges. Pick one you actually got into. I didn't force you to apply, and you're going to be fine wherever you end up.
I then run upstairs and slam the door to my room, and you can hear the sounds of video games coming from my bedroom.
All right, so, I mean, this one is a little bit over the top. I mean, let's just shout out some of the things. There's many things wrong with it, but let's talk about, breaking it down. What did you hear that was concerning? And go ahead.
The first thing is you can't tell the kid you didn't try hard the moment they got denied.
Right.
That's just brutal.
Right, I mean, right, because a lot of these decisions, as we all know, are random and you have no control over them, so it can't really be connected with their efforts. Anything else?
Sibling comparisons?
Right, I mean, that was brutal. I hope no one here would do that. But it also, what I thought was interesting about the way they wrote it is probably it was the mom's dream for her kids to go off to her alma mater together, if it was the alma mater. But there could be a granular truth in that it was a dream in the family, and then it took a bad turn. Anything else? What about you guys? Anything else that they didn't cover?
No, I mean, I think the sibling is huge, and I think we see this a lot, and it's always inadvertent, right? I know a lot of you, and none of you would be out there like, well, you you did so much less than your brother. But I think it's often kind of intrinsic in the students where, like, we're dramatizing it, right? But this is what they're feeling. They're feeling this comparison and, you know, this is what my cousin did and it went really well, or this is what, you know, our neighbor did and it went really well. So even if you're not hearing that, I think there can be a lot of that, you know, internal monologue going on. And what I didn't hear as a terrible mom is, I didn't hear her ask, like, how are you feeling? Are you okay? You know, none of that. So.
And just on a larger scale, so outside of the home, in addition to the potential for sibling comparison, in this high school, you know, this is a hot topic, and all of our seniors and our juniors just started talking about it yesterday. It's college, the college process. Where are people applying? Where are people hearing back from? What's going on at this school? How many kids got into this school? And so it's prevalent everywhere. And so just reminding your children, we're constantly reminding our students, this is your process, this is your journey, your colleges, your choices. So really driving that home.
Okay, somehow I'm about to get worse.
I'm back to the child now.
Mrs. Jones told me UNC decisions are out today. Have you seen yours?
I'm gonna look now. I'm freaking out.
What you think about, you bring about, and you are going to get in.
I didn't get in.
Oh no. I'm so sorry that this happened, but it's going to be okay. UNC just doesn't know how amazing you are.
I worked so hard for this.
I know, I could kill those admissions reps. All those sleepless nights spent studying for your AP tests and all of your activities, lacrosse, student advocates, volunteering at the nature center. What more do they want from you? If you didn't get in, I bet no one from your school will. There is no one more qualified than you.
Sarah just texted me and she got in.
Okay, well, that's just ridiculous. I know Sarah, and she isn't half the student that you are. Her parents must know someone. I'll do some digging. There's just no way she was accepted and you weren't.
I can't do this. I'm going over to Jess's house.
Just remember you're a star, and we'll get through this together. I can never have children.
All right, who wants to start?
Where do we start?
Anyone have thoughts about it? So we wanted you to have fun with it.
I would say even the first line is mom approaching the student saying, I heard from another parent that the decisions are out.
I think that scenario is going to be something that's going to happen a lot. I think we're going to go through that. So it makes some sense to kind of talk through that, because there's always a school that a child wants to go to, and she might think she's the most qualified for that. And also, like you said, comparing to the other person, why did the person get it? So that's going to be something that we will have to go through as a parent.
And I went through that, and it was, I did all of the wrong things. Like, I went right down the rabbit hole comparing, like, how could this possibly be? Like, they're the same qualifications, but one was an athlete and a recruited athlete, one wasn't, and then that was another. And I actually became a crazy person. So while my daughter was quietly moving on, I was not. I was like, gonna get to the bottom of this. How could this happen? And she, I think, was deferred and ended up not going. She ended up falling in love with something else. But it is, you're right, it is a very common scenario, and everyone's going to go through it. And listen, our mama bear comes out. Like, your child is hurting, you feel they were wronged, and you want to make it better. That's what we do as parents. And so the reason why this meeting is so important is because you can't make this better. And that's why so many, like, really together seniors start to fall apart, because really everything they've done so far, they have been able to control. If I work really hard, I will get into this AP class. If I work really hard, I'll get a good score. If I work really hard, I'll make the lacrosse team. Like, they've been taught to work very hard to achieve their goals. But when it comes to college admissions, you have no control over it. And you don't know why they're making it. It could be because they needed 10 violinists that year. It could be anything. And so the reason why this one's so
important to me is that's the lesson that you have to teach your child, not you did this, how could this be? It's like, wow, that really stinks, like you were really qualified, they must have been looking for something else. Because in life, they're gonna face that all the time. They're not gonna control what jobs they get, because the job, that they're applying for, they may be looking for all kinds of things, or internal applicants, all of those things. They have to learn to understand that they can't always control these decisions, and they have to learn how to cope with it. So that is a very good point, you're right. Any comments or thoughts about that?
I like to bring up with this one too. I think it is really important to kind of like manage what you're hearing in the community, right, and how that's impacting. So, to your point, the very first thing she said was, I heard from so-and-so that the decisions came out today. Well, first, decisions aren't always released for every student on the same day. So that can increase anxiety for nothing, right? Your child's decision may not even be available. I think it's also really important as parents to let your student come to you. And this is something we struggle with because we actually don't get those decisions either. We have to wait for students to tell us. And often, we'll hear, right, from either our parent or someone else. And it's really important to kind of let the student, right, drive that and lead that. So when they see their decision in their portal, that's when the decision is released, right? Not when, their best friend's mom has said, oh my gosh, have you seen the portal yet? Which they will do. You're gonna hear that.
Wouldn't, all of you look in the portal and see
We
where
can't see.
everyone?
No. No, so
How many went to UNC or Georgetown or whatever?
At the end of this year, we have a list of where all of the graduates will be attending. So we have a matriculation list.
Okay.
But as students are accepted, waitlisted, deferred, denied, we don't get that data unless the student tells us. So we do have meetings with our seniors at the end of the year. We ask them to update their naviances with all of the decisions from each school so that we have that data. But right now, this is a hot time of admissions, and the emails are coming out, portals are being updated, and we don't hear anything unless the students tell us. So please tell your kids.
yeah, tell your kids to tell their counselors. And we keep mentioning portals. Hopefully that is familiar to you all, but every time your child applies to a school, they're prompted to set up an account within that university's admissions portal. And that's where they'll be tracking decisions. If, for any reason a material, for their application was missing, that's where they'd be notified, so that's what we're referring to.
But it's also a parent's portal too, for the college?
Not usually. No, all on the student, and that's a good point that we're gonna come back to.
Yes, I did one for one, but I don't remember what it called, but that was the only one, and I'm like, should I say portal or what was the?
That's uncommon.
Yeah, that's
for
pretty
parent
common.
portals.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, same. All right. Dad, I got accepted to Central.
That school didn't even make the U.S. World Report ranking. What about Villanova? Your mother and I are alumni.
Yeah, but I want to major in early childhood education. They have one of the best programs in the state. And you heard Mrs. Shadler, Villanova is a huge reach. I know you went there, but there's no chance I'm getting in.
I don't know. Wouldn't it be better to aim a little higher? You've never had anything lower than an 80. I think you can do a little better.
Can you stop?
I'm just concerned about your future prospects. You need to consider a college that will open more doors for you.
Dad, stop. You're really annoying me. I'm going to Central. It's not like I've had straight A's throughout high school. I've taken 2 AP classes, and you think I can get into Villanova? You're insane, and I don't want to talk about this anymore.
Caroline, I'm pushing you because I love you. Maybe it's not Villanova, but I just want you to think about this. I'll allow you to keep Central on your list, but please submit applications to at least 3 schools that are ranked, especially if you want me paying your tuition.
Okay, thoughts?
I mean, what's the overwhelming message that the child got? That's disappointed in you. And it sounds like the child had done a lot of research about the best school for her. Anything else?
I think the child hit the teenage tone perfectly.
Oh,
So I didn't watch it. So kudos to the actress.
That's my years of
Well,
theater.
all of you who are my counselors are probably terrified. I promise I'm not this bad. And I think as, again, dramatized as we're making it today, I think a lot of us would be surprised how often this type of conversation really is going on in the home, right? Where we have these, not necessarily top ranked, but big name, very popular schools that, we're all really excited about, that it can be very disappointing if then your student isn't accepted into those, we like to call them kind of brand name colleges, right? And are excited about or are accepted to, a school that maybe you've never even heard of before. And you're like, well, what is this? Where am I sending you? It is a lot of money, right? It is a big decision. And, that can bring up kind of some anxiety in parents too.
And I have to say that I would think that, I would imagine that the dad's intentions were good in this. Like, in his mind, probably business mind, he's looking out for the future and he thinks that this, and this will be better for that. So he's thinking of it not in an emotional way, more of he's protecting his child. So that's why it's really good to listen to these examples, because even the purest of intent can sometimes have the wrong message. So when you're listening to it kind of acting out, like the child started off saying they were very excited that they got into the school of their choice. It has the major they want to do. They can see their future, and it was just kind of completely taken away.
Mm-hmm. And then the last thing on this one is I think, from the counseling suite, we have really been pushing our students to branch out and to apply to some schools that don't have those really popular, not just New Canaan, but like Fairfield County, brand names where we're submitting 60 plus applications, to those schools. We are pushing them to apply to some, outside of the box, smaller, lesser known schools. And that may mean, for you all that you're looking at colleges with your kids that you have quite literally never heard of. And, we just want you to hear that that's okay, and that, if your child is excited about one of those or is even keeping an open mind to one, that would be a great partnership, on your end, because that is something that we're also pushing for them.
And speaking of colleges where more than 60 students have applied, I got my Penn State decision and I was deferred.
This is unexpected. What are we going to do about this?
Do you think there's anything I can do to improve my chances of getting in?
Well, I don't know, but I'll reach out to the admissions office and send them a letter explaining why you're so passionate about attending and ask what else we can do.
Do you think it'll make a difference? I don't want to annoy them.
Well, I think it's worth a shot. We'll do everything we can to support you in this. I'll also ask Mr. Jones to talk to his golf instructor. I remember him mentioning that he's a Penn State alum and gives a hefty donation every year. I bet if you had a recommendation from him, they'd take you. And I bet we can also have Pastor George write an email. His great uncle went to Penn State.
Maybe, although I haven't really gone to youth group this year. Do you think he'd still write for me?
I'll get him on board. Don't worry about it. I'll also text the guys from the office. I'm sure someone knows someone.
All right.
Where do we begin?
Any thought? Go ahead.
Again, it's very parent-driven.
Yeah.
Yep. Very well acted. This is very good.
I think that you have made a very good point there about an article that was just recently released that I think everyone needs to hear about.
So UVA reached out yesterday, not directly to us, but in a broader email saying that since their November 1st deadline, they have received over 7,200 emails from applicants, whether it was a question about their application, an update on their application, something wrong with their portal. It was just the general admissions email account at UVA had received over 7,200 emails. A lot of those have come from parents.
And they called that out specifically,
Yeah.
right? Like that, of this astronomical number anyway, a significant percentage of that, they didn't give us exact numbers, were coming from not the applicant. So where do we think that, do we see a problem there? Okay, thank God.
So the question is this, in this deferral process, would the parents' interjection help the student get to the school be better, or just leave it and then wait for time?
I might argue that it hurts the student. Yeah, I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but every admissions counselor that I've ever, communicated with, they will say very bluntly, we do not want to hear from parents ever about anything. They want to hear from your students, right? They want to know that if there's a question, a concern, anything, that the student is mature enough, right, to reach out and problem solve, because that's what they're going to have to do next year.
So a student can do something, but not the parent.
Absolutely. Yep.
Now, I always play the I don't have anything to do with the college process, so I just have lived it, so. I mean, it's all about reading your child and seeing what do they need from me. If they're very distraught and they read their letter and it says you can write a letter, that doesn't mean you can't sit with them. If they want you to, you can sit with them and make sure that, they're including everything or that it's grammatically correct. Like you can be a parent and do that, but the most important step is to read them. They may have not wanted to go to that school in the first place, and you just have to move on and find out where they do want to go, right? So you have to read them, and if they want your help, you sit with them and you help. If they want to move on, you have to respect that. It's just all about taking the time to read your child.
I think in that scenario as well, like, we were doing a lot, right? We had a golf instructor involved, we had Pastor George involved, we were writing a letter. It can also hurt an applicant, right, to do too much. So we had mentioned that in admissions letters, right, there will be instructions. And it's so important to follow direction and follow instruction. If the school isn't asking for additional materials, consider not sending additional materials, right? If the school gives you the opportunity to upload, right, changes or additional letters, right, then you jump on that opportunity. If that's not something that's being asked, then maybe we kind of, pull back a little bit and just follow direction.
Yeah, colleges will take that. I mean, they all do, and they tell us loudly that that is a very strong consideration.
Yeah.
If they are specifically and explicitly stating something either on the portal or via email, they can tell if the student's even opened the email. They can tell how much time the student spent reading the email. They're really looking into all of those details, which is frightening, but it's real. And the directions that each student that they receive is so important for them to follow. If they're saying you may upload one additional letter recommendation or have one additional letter sent, excellent. Ask the supplemental writer to send that letter right away. Don't have 3 people mail letters to admissions.
You read advice that says if a child is deferred, they should write a letter of continued interest.
The college will tell you.
The college
They will say,
Okay.
typically with the deferral letter, it will say, if you wish to demonstrate your continued interest or express a written expression of continued interest. And it could be just a sentence or a space on the portal where they can do that, or it could just be a response to an email. Your children are all welcome to also come see us. Again, keep us involved in the process and let us know, because we're here to support through all that.
And I think that's a great question, because the letter of continued interest, right, that's coming directly from the student and being sent to admissions. So even if that's not something that the admissions department is necessarily explicitly saying that they should do, that's not the type of thing that is going to be held against a student, right? If they shoot, a quick email to their admissions rep or to the admissions department, thank you so much for the continued opportunity, you're my blah, blah, blah choice, right? That's not the type of thing that's going to negatively impact them. Very different than, having 5 additional letters sent or, trying to reach out to and stalk an admissions rep. Those are the kinds of things that we want to settle down. Oh, go ahead.
If you don't mind. So I understand following up emails and things like that, but what about if the child actually gets denied and rejected? Is it a good idea to send the admissions an email saying hey, what was wrong, why did you not get accepted? Just kind of asking why.
So we as counselors do a lot of that in our admissions review process. So every spring we review the list of every single senior, every college to which those students submitted applications, and we look at those decisions. And if there are questions or concerns or issues that we notice, then we do follow up on those. If there is a decision that seems it's just very odd or off or surprising, your kids are more than welcome to come see us. I think it might not look great, nor would the university change their minds if the student asks, why didn't I get in?
I also think they're just not likely to get the most helpful feedback, right? I think admissions readers, and I believe this, they're looking for reasons to accept students. They're never looking for a reason to deny. And usually the reality is there's just an astronomical amount of applications. There's hardly ever something that an admissions rep can point to and say, well, this wasn't great, this didn't work in your favor. That's rarely the case. It's usually just, we had 50,000 plus applications and we could only accept 2,000, and it's just a numbers game. And so I often find with students, it doesn't necessarily make them feel better to have that information. It's like, well, great, thanks. So I just think we want to kind of, to your earlier point, read your child, see what it is they're upset about, try to help them process that and move on.
I got my Clemson decision back. They deferred me.
Oh, hon, let's take a look at it. Okay, well, this wasn't what we expected. Are you okay?
Not really. I really wanted this.
Well, did they mention what they expect from deferred students? Have they provided any guidance?
They do mention submitting an update on my achievements and interests.
Okay, that's a good sign. And while you consider doing that, it might also help to look at some of your other acceptances.
I don't know if I want to consider other options yet. This was my dream.
I know, but remember, exploring other opportunities doesn't mean giving up on this one. It's just about keeping those options open.
I guess. I just feel stuck.
And it's okay to feel that way. Maybe sending the update that the college requested might help you to feel more proactive. Do you need any help organizing your updated resume or composing that email?
Sure. I guess I could use some help making sure I don't forget anything. Thanks.
You're welcome.
So again, it's really all about reading your child, right? So, I mean, in my house, and it's also reading your own personality, to be quite honest. So in my house, I'm the emotive one. I like to feel things and talk about things and go over and over things. And my husband is the more practical, like, all right, well, that stinks. Let's move forward. I mean, that's the reality of my house. So unfortunately, when my daughter got her rejection and took to her bedroom for 8 hours, I was hovering, making cookies, making her favorite dinner. I wanted through the door. I just wanted to hug her. And she, my husband said, what are you doing? She's sad. She just needs time. Just leave her alone. So I reluctantly went downstairs, and she eventually did come out of her room and ended up going to another school that she loved, which I know kids hate it when you say that. Everything happens for a reason. You can't say that right now, but I can say it after to her. But it's really knowing your own personality, knowing when you're going to be a good fit with your child as they're processing rejection or not. Because the reality for me is I was processing my own rejection as well. So I was like, what? And that wouldn't have been helpful to her. So I should have just let her alone. But I must have gone up a million times. Are you sure I can't come in and help you? She's more like her dad. She needed space. She needed to cry. She wanted privacy. And then she was fine. So I tell that story just to illustrate really knowing who you are as a processor of rejection and knowing who your child is and just really finding a balance with that.
I think for all of you with boys, right? I feel like girls, we emote where it's pretty clear how we're feeling, right? We don't hide it well. And I'm generalizing a bit, but I do think with a lot of, even just like my students, it's harder to know how the boys are feeling, right? They get a rejection, and I think oftentimes like they are hurting, but they don't necessarily emote in quite the same way, and that can be really difficult. So again, just kind of meeting them where they're at. If they're slamming doors and playing Fortnite, as frustrating as that may be, okay, like this is what they need. If they're gonna go over to Jeremy's house and complain about it, that's okay too. and just, you know, kind of like reading the room, right? And it's okay if they're not ready to talk about it, if they're not ready to, you know, like take those next proactive steps and move on. Eventually, that is also where you all can step in and really be helpful. Like, what are the tangible things that we can do now to take the next step? I heard UVA released their decisions today. Have you looked?
Not yet. I was going to right now. I'm really nervous, Mom.
I understand. You've been waiting for this, but no matter what it says, remember that I'm here for you.
I didn't get in.
Oh, sweetie, I can see how much this meant to you. I'm here to listen if you want to talk about it.
I worked so hard.
You did, and I'm proud of you for that. And rejection stings, but it doesn't define you or your worth or your efforts. Let's figure out what you need right now. Do you want some time alone, or do you want to talk about more about how you're feeling?
I think I just need a little time. I'm gonna go to Jess's house. She's expecting me.
Okay, take the time you need, but when you're ready, I am here to support you in figuring out your next steps. Remember, you've gotten some fantastic acceptances already, so when you're ready, let's plan to do some more research into the schools that do see your value as a student. Yeah, finally a good parent.
I think there's two things that I learned going through the process. So this isn't scientific or anything, but that putting all your eggs in one basket is always a big problem. So that's what happened with my daughter. She wouldn't look anywhere else. She just wanted this school, and then she didn't get in, and that was just horrific for her. So putting your eggs in one basket is just not good. So by the time I got to the third child, my goal was to help him fall in love with a likely school. Like we went and visited it multiple times, you know, schools that your school counselor tell you you're likely to get in there. My job was to find one that they loved, and they loved everything about it, and we visited. And it immediately takes the pressure off of your home. You know, because you know that even if they don't get into this reach school or their first choice, they at least have a school that they love and they know they'd be happy at. So those are the two things that I really learned going through the process.
And I do want to note, speaking of things learned through the process, in a couple of weeks on December 19th, all of your kids will be in this room. They're invited to a panel with students from the NCHS class of 2024. So students who were in your kids' shoes at this time last year, they all have now gotten, you know, a semester of college under their belts, or potentially gap year or employment or whatever. I'm not exactly sure who our panel is made up of yet. We're still reaching out to be alums. But they will come back here to this room, and all of the current seniors will sit, and they will be able to ask questions and hear about each of their processes. And a couple of us counselors, I think it's you and me, we moderate a discussion between the alums and the current seniors, and it just is a nice way. It's one of the best days of the year,
it's my favorite
for the seniors, not only to be able to breathe a sigh of relief and see these kids up there that have, you know, taken that next step and have begun that next chapter. And it's so nice for the seniors, or for the former seniors, to be able to deliver that message to their peers, because they were just in the hallways together last year. So your kids do have that to look forward to on December 19th.
And while they definitely don't want to hear from you all that everything's going to work out and be fine, like, it'll be okay. When the now college freshmen say it to them, and they say it from a place where they're wearing their college sweatshirt and they are so excited and happy to be back, it's crazy how much they mature and kind of change in that 1 year. I think our seniors really do hear it. Like, okay, they really are okay. And I know 5 of them didn't get into their top choice ED school, and look how happy they are. And look at all the wonderful things they're doing on that campus, and they get to hear it from their peers, so they are getting that message. And I do really think it sinks in when it's coming from the alum.
Questions?
Yeah, so now we can open it up to questions.
I have more of a logistical question. So if after an ED1 and you're deferred, you're gonna go into the big admissions pool with decisions coming out when?
So the regular pool comes out, if those deadlines are like January, they're normally hearing back by March.
Okay. So then the question is, if someone ED2s, they're not gonna hear from that ED1 deferral before they get that, the ED2 decision. So is that something you guys help the student in terms of saying, okay, that ED2 choice, you're still pretty likely to get in if you do regular, so that they still have the option of that ED1 deferral?
So if you're deferred ED1, you are no longer by any means bound to that
Right.
university. And ED2 is the same thing as ED1, just a little bit later. So you are committing to that
Right.
university and saying, if you do admit me, I will enroll.
But the question is, if that ED1 deferral is still kind of a choice that you really do want, but are you able to give the advice to the student, if they tell you what their ED2 is, listen, don't ED2, apply regular, you still have a good chance of getting in regular, and that way you'll have the choice of what your original deferral was if that's an accept. Does that make sense?
Yeah, if the ED2 is a likely school, and it really is just a formality of, submitting the ED2.
I don't really know, so that's.
Yeah, this may be a conversation with the council.
Well, and this is also just kind of, I think, an opportunity for a bigger conversation right around ED. So when I'm guiding my students around ED or ED2, the only reason you should be applying ED or ED2 is because that's your top choice school, right? So if you have an ED that didn't work out and you're deferred to the regular decision round, but that's still your top #1 dream school, my question to you would be, then why on earth are we EDing elsewhere, right? Because if the worst case scenario is going to be that you're accepted to both, that you don't want to be in that position, right? So I think it really depends on like why your child would be pursuing ED2. If it's because they think that that's their best admissions chance, all of you who are my counselees know, I say that is not a reason to ED2. So it really is very school dependent, right? It really is very dependent on the child themselves. Yeah.
So that's more of a question I should just talk to their counselor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you allowed to withdraw an ED2 if all of a sudden you hear from one of your EAs in the first round and all of a sudden you're accepted to that one, but you haven't heard yet from your ED2? Do you then withdraw your ED2 at that time?
Yeah.
It's not like
If the ED2 has been submitted, you can't withdraw
once it's
them.
submitted, even if you haven't heard back, you still have to wait. You understand what I'm saying? So if you are waiting on an early action.
Right.
And that's not coming out till the end of January.
Right.
Okay.
And then you ED2 for January 1st.
Yep.
But then all of a sudden you're here,
Right.
you get
Right.
into your EA.
You're still bound to the ED2 if you are
Even
limited.
if you haven't heard back.
Yeah. So most of the early round, your children will be hearing back before the new year, before those ED2 or regular deadlines.
And that's another
Some of them are
one.
pushing back by now.
Right. Well, and that's also one of those like very specific situations, right? And, based on my experience, right, I think there are certain colleges that you could reach out to admissions. I would always recommend that the student be doing that with their counselor, like we'll do the call together, right? And request that they, pull their ED2 application, and it may be a yes, it may be a no, because it is a binding agreement, right? So that's why we say you really want to be 100% confident if you're applying to an ED, whether it's ED1 or ED2. Very specific to the university itself, and we'll, of course, always help the student kind of through that process, but go into it with the mindset that ED or ED2 is a binding contract between that school.
It'd be great if they all been on the same calendar.
Wouldn't that be lovely? Please, we would really love that.
The holiday is gonna be so much stress. So it's not gonna be.
Hopefully not.
Well, now that you've had this,
We're gonna be on vacation.
I know.
Yes.
And the lesson is, right, college admissions, it's so out of your control. Your students have already done the hard work to make themselves wonderfully qualified applicants to their schools. By this point, they've met with their counselors, and they should have a very balanced list of targets, reaches, and likelies. So they know, right, that they are very qualified, strong applicants for the vast majority of their schools. They have done, and you all have done, everything that they possibly can. So from here on out, it's really a lesson in patience and a lesson in like how we tolerate discomfort, because it is uncomfortable waiting for a decision that is now totally outside of your control. There is nothing you can do. That's the hardest part, and like how do we tolerate that distress? How do we move on, you know, and continue living life while we're waiting, and not let it totally, you know, ruin your vacation or ruin your holidays?
So I don't get about vacation, I just.
And it really can. I have some students who are so anxious that like this is all they're thinking about, and
Yeah,
that's what we have to focus on.
Like knowing
Right.
that or like.
Right.
it's one of these-
Like how do we move past this? How do we move the discussion on? Yeah.
Just in general terms, where do the early action deadlines kind of fit in against the regular decision timelines?
So the early deadlines were in a handful in October, mid-October, mostly early November, November 1st or November 15th.
I meant in terms
And
of
they'll hear
response.
back, or in December. So some were December 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, some are December 15th, some are, you can search online, it's not always accurate, it's not always helpful. They might say by January 15th, and it could be December 15th, or it could be January 14th.
Yeah, I'm sorry to clarify. What I meant is, when you hear back from early action versus regular decision, does it vary by school?
Varies by school, certainly. So every school has a different release date, which is very annoying. Depending on that early decision deadline, right, whether it was November 1st, November 15th, that causes some variation. It also depends on like how that school reads and then how they release their decisions. So it's varied. Usually it's somewhere between early to middle of December and early to middle of January when you're receiving those decisions back. Then usually regular decision deadlines are anywhere from January 1st up through February, up through March sometimes. And then you're getting those decisions back truly all the way through May. Yeah, or through April, right? Usually the decision or your deposit date is almost always May 1st. So you almost always have your decisions by then.
Thank you.
Not a lot of clear answers.
No.
Yeah, no.
No, I mean, I just thinking about schools that my student may have applied to that we haven't visited, that, now if he gets an early action,
Yeah.
admission, well, we gotta figure out the fitting a visit.
Yeah.
in.
Yeah. They do not make this easy for anyone involved in the process, so.
I have a question. Because it's been a long time since I've been through this. Why do so many people apply early decision? Is it help admissions, or does it, like, why? Because, I mean, back in the day when I had kids, it was, you only applied early decision if it was your number one school and that's all you wanted. But now that it's so, like, some of these questions are interesting me because it wasn't like that. So why are so many people applying early decision? Does it help their admissions rate?
Colleges are pretty loud about what percentage of each class they've accepted early decision, and they do take a hefty portion of each of their incoming freshman classes early decision, if they do offer early decision. It is trendy, there's a lot of schools, just within the last, I'd say 5 or 6 years, schools have added ED2. That was not a thing before. I think the pandemic kind of contributed to that. But early decision does increase the chances of admission, because those colleges know they don't have to worry about how many other schools that student was accepted to and what is the likelihood they're actually coming here. They know exactly that they've offered that seat and that student will be filling that seat.
Right, and I am about to sound so jaded, so please take this with a grain of salt. But remember, college, like from the college end, right, they're looking to fill a class, and that's tuition, right? They're looking for guaranteed tuition payers that they know will attend, not only for 1 year, right, but for 4 years. So when you're applying ED, 1, you're essentially a guaranteed payer, right? And 2, you are going to that school. It is the strongest way to demonstrate interest. So from the admissions perspective, that's likely a student that is not only going to fill the class that incoming freshman year, but is likely going to stay with them, right, for all 4 years. And I do want to just mention, yes, colleges will report and are reporting that they're accepting the highest percentage of their applicants from the ED pool, but those acceptances are almost never surprises, right? These are not situations where students are applying to likely or to reach schools ED and they're getting in. the ED is not the thing that's getting students into a REACH school. They're accepting a high percentage of qualified, students who are right in line or above their average accepted GPA. So the students who are being accepted in the early decision round are students who, in my opinion, had very strong chances for admission anyway. And I think there was a question in the back. Go ahead.
I have a FAFSA question. Is that?
We might be able to answer.
Okay. Well, so I just completed mine, but I had a lot of trouble. It turns out that FAFSA is not compatible with Apple products, like MacBook Airs. So
Oh my God.
So my son started it. I never got the invitation. I've been on the phone with them a few times, and they're like, you have to delete yours. He has started sending. So it just doesn't work with Apple products, and it also didn't work with my .NET email address.
Oh, Lord.
So I have a lot of technical issues, but yesterday I got through. But I'm concerned, like, how do I confirm that the schools are is there a way to confirm that that it's been completed in the school?
As arduous as a process it will be, I would say have your child reach out to the financial aid offices at those schools. Just a quick one-line email. I had some technical difficulties with my FAFSA form. Please confirm receipt in the financial aid office, and they can confirm that for you.
She may need to use a different browser, because I used Apple and it wasn't a problem.
And maybe try Chrome. We do everything on Chrome.
Yeah, they told me not to use Safari, to use Chrome, and I did, and that I still just wasn't getting the email invitation.
Yeah, I'm not heard that yet, but FAFSA is historically the worst, and there are always issues, so I'm not at all surprised.
I was surprised.
Yeah, reach out to the financial aid offices, and they should be able to help.
Just an added comment to that. We had a good CSS profile, and I went on Chrome, and it just wasn't working. And then I switched to Edge, and it worked.
Of course.
Then I realized I cleared out the cookies from Chrome, and then it worked. So
The fact that you have to do it in all of this just to complete a required document is.
Don't assume it's, you may have to clear out the browser's history and cookies, or you may have to use a different browser.
There you have it.
Oh, I have another FAFSA question.
Yeah.
Do you all know if early action schools are looking at it? Because I know there was like a soft opening, right? And then the official December 1st opening. So like I did one with Max, it was processed November 21st, but like the schools aren't grabbing it from cyberspace. So I don't know. Do you know if they're waiting for people to submit December 1st and then rolling it out?
It's open now, actually.
I
it was
didn't even realize that it was open in November. I thought
Yeah.
it was December.
It's about last
It opened like 3 weeks earlier. It opened before Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
November.
I would say the same advice then to contact the financial aid office and
Okay,
just
just
verify that
have
it's
it.
gotten to the university.
And I would say in terms of admissions, this is just anecdotal from I've been an admissions reader before, so in my experience at the school that I worked at, we really weren't looking at the financial piece during that first read. So I think it'll be very dependent on the timing of their reads, when they started the early action read and what stage they're in. I would say at this point, ideally most schools are within their final steps, right, where they're really narrowing things down. So my guess would be that it wouldn't largely overlap, but again, that's just kind of an anecdotal guess from where I've been in the past.
And I feel like, to your point, like the CSS profile schools maybe aren't even looking at the past because of the issues in the past.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned. It's actually
Sure is.
Well, thank you all for being here.
Thank you.